Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something.
Hi there, and welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next, and if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. Now, in part 5 of this series of the 4L60E that we're rebuilding for the second time, now, right, we're going to start with installing our load and reverse clutch pack. What's important with these clutch packs, and especially with when you're including like a shift kit or modifications to improve durability and so forth, you want to pay real careful attention to your clearances in your clutch pack. Now, for the low reverse, the ATSG manual indicates a clearance. Well, they use what's called a measured height for the low reverse, because you can't really get in there to measure the actual clearance of this clutch pack. And what they mean by the measured height is if you take all of your steels and clutches and stack them up, and including in the stock configuration, the cushion spring, or wave plate as we call it, measuring the height from the flat surface up to the top of the plate here on the sprag, it should be 1.200 to 1.240 inches. We're well within the pocket there for that. So this clutch pack is ready to get installed. So let's get started with that. Now it's time to start stacking our low reverse clutch. Your steels have, one of the tangs has a little notch on it right here, and that needs to go in this 6 o'clock position. Let me try to not cover everything, block the camera. This recess right here is where that tang with the notch has to go. Because we're a little tiny bit of a performance application, we're doing away with the cushion spring and instead replacing it with 2 steels. Now this is a common thing that we do when building one of these transmissions. And we put our pre-soaked clutches in here. Once we do that, and we'll alternate our clutches and steels until they're all in. Alright, now we'll put our snap ring back in here. The important bit with this snap ring is you want to make sure that the gap between the two ends of the snap ring, okay, is around this anti-clunk spring. That's very important. I'm not going to be able to both see what I'm doing and not obstruct the camera, so I'll apologize in advance here. But you can pretty much get an idea of what I'm doing here. I always double check and make sure that ring is fully seated in its groove. Now we should be able to air check that low reverse. Right. That appears to be very righteous. Now it's time to move on to the next step. We're going to go ahead now and install our sun gear and hardened sun gear shell. Now, if you've got a stock 4L60E, you may have a plastic thrust washer that goes here that seats down into here. Now this one, we've got a roller bearing and we've got our nice Sonnax hardened sun gear shell. So now what we're going to do is, first thing we got to do, all this stuff is new, but we still want to check. We have a new bushing in here that we've installed. And what that's going to do is that's going to ride here. Okay. So you want to make sure this is in good shape, which we are. And then, of course, you want to examine all our teeth inside here, your teeth here, and these splines for damage. Of course, these are all new and part of this hardened sun gear shell, so they're good. And we have another planetary gear set here, and we do the same thing like we did with the other planetary. We check for end play and any side-to-side movement to make sure we don't have any bad rollers in there, which this is, of course, is all good. So we'll start by installing this down into here. And then we can put our sun gear shell in, and we have our roller bearing here, which has been pre-lubricated. And make sure, of course, that the flat side goes against the shell. And we can just set that down in here. And again, I apologize if I get in the way of the camera. And make sure everything spins nice and freely. And we have our other planet carrier here. You have a bushing in here. You want to check and make sure that's not messed up. Again, we can check our teeth on our sun gear here. And we have another roller bearing here, same thing. You know, the rounded side goes towards the housing, and we'll drop this down in. Now, if your sprag's working right, it should rotate clockwise and lock the other way. Now we've got our roller bearing down in here. And we can set our planet down into here. All right. Now we're ready to install our output shaft. We'll install our snap ring on here. All right, our snap ring's in there all nice. Our shaft turns nice both ways. That takes care of the bottom half of the transmission. Now, the next thing we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and start working on our input drum. We got to remember this little green O-ring, very important. I want to get that in there. And we want to make sure we lube up where that O-ring goes. And all of the sealing surfaces in here. Get them all nice and ready. Then we're going to lay out our 3/4 ply ring, and we're going to check our 3/4 return spring cage. And you want to check and make sure that all the springs are good, you don't have anything broken. Now, we've modified this cage because of the Sonnax kit that we put in here the first time we went through this transmission. So we have new stiffer springs in here. So we know that this cage is good. So we're going to set this right here and just set that aside for the moment. Then we want to inspect our forward clutch housing here. We want to inspect in here and out here, and this little check ball capsule, make sure that that's in there and that's working good. Make sure there's no damage or galling or anything on any of these sealing surfaces. And this, of course, is in good shape. Now what we're going to do, we're going to lube up this forward clutch piston. Lube this up real nicely. Put this in here. Now kind of want to go at it at an angle and twist, and if you're lucky it'll go right in. If not, you might need to use a feeler gauge, but I'm telling you, if you use this stuff, this joy jelly I call it, it'll go right in, because this housing is chamfered and it'll drop right in. I mean, this is some really good stuff. Now, the other thing you also want to do is you want to check your 3/4 piston, and a good way to do that is to set it on there and make sure it fits snug, and it does, so we're good there. All right, now we're going to do our 3/4 piston here. We're going to lube that up real nicely. I'm getting myself all slicked up here with this stuff. And then we're going to seat this bad boy down in here and just get kind of some even pressure on here. And it should go right down in there, easy peasy. Now, we'll take our forward clutch piston and set it down into the 3/4 ply ring, and we're going to align these wide tabs with these tabs here and set it right on top of this spring cage. And then we'll take this assembly here and set it down inside the drum, lining these wide fingers with the wide slots in the drum. And the cage will go down in there like that, or the ply ring, and then we'll just need to press this down, and you'll feel it go down. It's chamfered, so it just drops right in there nice and easy as you please. And then we're going to lube up our Overrun piston. And lube up inside here. And we'll set this down in here. And we just kind of give her a gentle twist as we go down in there. And that'll seat in there like so. And then we'll get our other spring cage, and our snap ring. Set this down in here like so. And this also had new springs provided by Sonnax. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and stack our Overrun clutch frictions in here. So we'll have 2 frictions and 2 steels. We want to start with the steel, and we want to install our steel in here and line it up to where the wide gap is where all the fingers are here, like so. Drop that down in there thusly, and then we want to soak our friction. Drop our friction in there. And we want to drop another steel in there. And then our other friction. Don't ever really want to put these in dry. I know some guys do that, but I've not been a big fan of that. All right, so now we're going to take and put our input shaft seal in right here, but we're going to lube it up first. This time we're going to use our thicker assembly goo. Which is more like a gel. Put that in there. Press that seal in there like so. And we've got our thrust bearing lubed up. We're going to set that in there like that. Then we've got our sprag here. We want to make sure that we test it, that it rotates clockwise freely and locks if we try to turn it counterclockwise. Now, I've already disassembled this and checked it. It's all good to go. And then what we'll do is we smidge it around in there and get it to line up on our frictions. And get it to where it seats on that thrust bearing. And we're in there good. The next thing we want to do, we want to take our forward clutch apply plate and line these little tabs up here with these little tabs right here on the forward clutch apply piston. Like so. And then we'll get our forward clutch frictions. We got 5 of those. In this case, we are going to install our wavy plate, okay? And that is going to be, because we don't want this thing, you know, just slamming into gear. And we'll line that up like so. And we'll line these little key, kind of little indents right here with the same tabs that were lined up on the forward clutch apply piston. All right. And then we will start with the steel. And then a friction. Steel. And friction. And steel. Friction. And steel. Friction. And we set our apply plate in there. Now, when it comes to the snap rings, you got two different snap rings here. And you'll notice that one's slightly smaller than the other. Okay, you want to use a smaller one here because this one goes up here. So we'll set that one aside. And this is also a Sonnax part as well. It's a modified snap ring. Work our way around as we go. And get our snap ring seated in this groove here because it is just barely going to fit. And that's exactly what we want because we don't want this snap ring coming out. And the other bit that we want to check for is clutch pack clearance. We want 30 to 60 thousandths inch of clearance on this clutch pack. Again, you know, when you're talking putting shift kits in and things like that, you want to resist the urge to go tightening everything up in the, you know, the line of thinking that you're going to make everything better because you're not. So we're going to measure this, see just where we're at with this, and go from there. We have our forward clutch installed, and now we need to check our end play. So the end play, or the clearance, clutch pack clearance on this can be 30 to 65 thousandths. Now I've measured this and I've got about 45 thousandths in here. So we're right in the pocket on that. And when I air check it, no leakage. So I am happy with that. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and stack up our 3/4 clutch. Now what we've got, we have our Sonnax set up here, which is our heavy duty 3/4 clutch kit, which has the heavy duty apply ring and end plate, which is a lot stiffer and has extra clutch discs and steels in here to really beef up this 3/4 clutch, you know, since this is the weak spot of this transmission. Now, in a stock factory 3/4 clutch, the clearance on this clutch pack should be, I think it's 60 to 85 thousandths clearance. Now, with the Sonnax kit, they call it, the clearance should be 50 to 60 thousandths. So you take your apply ring with these little tabs here and you lay them down in like so. And then we put our rings, our frictions in, and our 3/4 did not burn, so we were good on this. So I was happy to see that. And our actual problem in this transmission was elsewhere. And it was all down in the low reverse area. Now we are going to pay extra careful attention to the shift timing between second and third, because I don't think we paid enough attention to that the first time we went through this. So I'm gonna deep dive on this thing and just make double, triple, quadruple sure that there are no issues with this before I take it back to them. So don't want to forget our boost springs. And that's what helps with our shift timing. These boost springs give that second gear band just a little bit more time to come off before this 3/4 comes on. All right. Now what I did, since it's kind of tough to get 60 thousandths of an inch worth of feeler gauges in here, I've got this piece of metal here which I've mic'd out, and it comes right in with just a little bit of drag right at 60 thousandths. So we are good. And then we will air check this and make sure there's no leaks. Now there is a check ball capsule in here, which I'll cover that. So now our input drum is all done. We know our Teflon sealing rings are all good. We've air checked all our clutches, checked our sprag, we've checked all our gear teeth and everything. So now in part 6 we'll work on our input drum and the band and the front pump. So stay tuned.